Welcome to another episode of Your Favorite Libertarian. Today we're going to be talking about the Safariland 6390 RDS. Let's get in. In this review, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of this holster. Dare I say there might be some cons. And we'll also talk about the features as well as some of the things that you might want to change to make them work better for you, but also some of the things that you might want to add as far as accessories go. Back to me. Safety first. The gun that I will be using as what will be living in this holster for this review is unloaded, and we're dealing with unloaded magazines. I want to end this review on a positive note, so the first thing we'll talk about are the cons of this particular holster. The FBI can't, the weight, the bulkiness, the rubbing on the TLR1's hardware, the difficulty in which you are able to order this, the amount of time you have to wait to get one of these holsters, and lastly, the price. This is how I would like the holster to sit. Unfortunately, it does this. Because for some reason it can't be straight from the factory. And that's because it has the FBI can't, unfortunately. What that means is that when you have the threading, if you take this piece off, which is the fork, the QLS fork, we'll get into all the acronyms probably at some point in this video. The QLS fork though is mounted to this, and I've actually kind of canted it the other way to try to make it straight. That's one of the things you can do to get around the FBI can't, but where the threading is on this holster is from the factory going to put your gun like this, meaning you have a handgun, this is how it's going to sit. So at 3 o'clock doesn't make sense to me. Even further back at different angles, it doesn't really make sense. The FBI can't hasn't really been popular in the industry for probably a good 20 years, so I'm not really sure why they're still coming out with FBI can't from the factory for the Safariland holsters. I should also put a disclaimer, I'm not military or law enforcement, so maybe there's some reason for military or law enforcement specifically to have this can't, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. And I think that it's illustrated in the fact that Safariland has a specific mount for your belt that mounts to this, where this QLS fork would be, that gives you a ton of adjustment so you can basically make it straight. And the Safariland QLS system has a little bit of wiggle room to kind of adjust it because they probably realize it's cheaper to make this little plastic part than to remake this entire holster so that it's straight up and down like most people would prefer, myself included. To me, the FBI can is just inefficient. If it's canted like this, you go to draw, you have to have your wrist cocked at a really weird angle. You get it out, and then you still have to turn it more just to get it straight, as if you were pulling out from a vertical mounted holster, and then you can turn it and get it into whatever you're doing. It just doesn't make sense to me. FBI can't, I would say, for me, is a con. Weight. We gotta talk about the weight. The weight. There's a few reasons why this is heavier than something like, let's say the Tier 1 Centurion holster. This is using active retention, so it's much slimmer, and the Kydex is much thinner than this guy. This also has this little piece of hardware that's added on for the hood so that you can have a second level of retention. If you're interested in this, I'm not using this anymore because I have a light and a red dot on this now, so I'm using this pretty much exclusively. But if you are interested in something like this works for pretty much any Glock, even the long slides. So as long as it's not a 10 millimeter, you should be good to go with this. If you're interested, DM me on Instagram at Your Favorite Libertarian. We'll figure something out. I say that to say this is heavier because, one, you have a much thicker Kydex, and that's hopefully going to lead to and lend itself to better durability. You also have this flip up guy here, so kind of that falls under attachments or things that are added to the holster. You have all of these different points here for adjustment. so that you can make it tighter or less tight depending on what lights you're running, things on your gun, etc. You also have these plugs here, and you have the ALS system itself. So your ALS system is actually going to retain itself with this part of your handgun, and that's going to add some bulk and some weight. And you also have the way of releasing it, which is this guy right here. You also have some suede in here, which is really nice, so you're not marring up the finish. So there's a lot going on with this holster. You also have the QLS fork that you can attach. That's going to add some weight too. So this is going to be heavier than most holsters. If that's a concern to you, understandable. If it's not, that's cool. Just something to keep in mind if you're thinking about getting this holster. It's not going to be a light holster. I don't really feel the need to expand on this much, but it's bulky. You can see it's very bulky because it does not use active retention to retain the handgun, meaning it's not going to go off the trigger guard to retain it, or the light to retain it if there was a light on this one. It's going to be much bulkier. And part of that is modularity. You can have a bunch of different lights and different guns in this. But because of that, it is going to be a lot bigger. One, because it has to house the ALS system. Two, because it's got the thicker Kydex. And three, because that's just how they decided to make it. It's one thing about the holster that really rubs me the wrong way. And not so much me, but my TLR1HL. If you look at the TLR1HL, you have this adjustment knob, which is great. Where it is not so great is when you are trying to holster this guy into here. The only way I've really figured out to reliably get this in every time without it getting caught up is to start it at an angle, push it in, and then push it through the rest of the way. When I unholster, there's some rubbing, and the rubbing occurs right here. If you can look and see this, there's a bunch of material that's starting to rub off where that little nub, those two little nubs, meet this part of the Kydex. Now there's some things you can do to get around that. You can sand this down, or you can get a heat gun and kind of bend this out of the way so it's not as much of a protrusion. And if you are going to continue to run this holster with this light with a Glock 19 Gen 4, don't know if the generations matter, but that's just what I have for more data for you, then those are some things you might want to do. I'm kind of leaving this alone. I want to see, one, if it works itself out and just shaves off enough that it's out of the way. But two, after my low light class, I might want to get a different weapon light for my handgun, and it might become a non-issue with like an X300 or something else like that. This works with a bunch of different lights, so we'll see. But that's just something that I noticed, and if you are running this particular holster with this particular light and gun setup, it might be something to think about. Last thing on cons, and then I'll get to the positive stuff. I'd much rather talk about the positives of this. As far as the last 3 bullet points of cons go, I'll say this was hard to order. These are tough to get and take a really long time to get to you. And also the price, I will say, is a con just because they're expensive. It took me 98 days from the time that I placed the order until I got this. So it took a long time. Also, as far as the ordering process, these are really hard to order because it's not like one of those holster companies that has like a couple options and then they'll show you a picture of what it looks like when you select those options. You're not really going to get that with Safariland. Safariland itself, if you go direct, their website is horrible as far as being able to figure out even A, what you want, and B, what it'll look like when it's done. So you're pretty much spending a lot of money and you're ordering blind. You're just hoping that when you get it, it's what you wanted, and you're gonna wait a really long time to get it. So hopefully you got it right. Otherwise, it's gonna be another almost 100 days. As far as what I paid for this, I paid $193.16, and I think that was shipped and taxes and everything. So yeah, price is another thing. This is not an inexpensive holster. So all those things in mind, let's get to the pros and the features and the mods that I've done to this. Now let's talk about the good stuff, the things I really like about this. First, I'll just talk about features. Features, quote unquote features. This, again, is the 6390 RDS. It's an ALS system, level 1, mid-ride, duty holster. It's right-handed. The wrap is Cordura Ranger Green, and it's right-handed. This, as far as the designation at the end of all that information goes, is 283, whatever that means. I'll put all the information in the description below, along with any accessories, places I got it, places I would recommend going for this stuff, etc. But that's what we're talking about. So as far as features go, you have the ALS system, obviously. That is actuated with this guy here. And you have adjustment screws here and here to make adjustments to how tight it is and how much that ALS system goes in and out of that portion that it connects to, as far as where it interfaces with the handgun. You also have, besides what's here, you can order it with the QLS fork already installed. You can order it with other Safariland accessories installed from various websites. It also comes with this. The particular model that I described comes with this. And what this is an additional piece to keep people from taking your gun out of your holster without your permission. So this partly is why you have the FBI can't. So someone tries to grab your gun. They either try from, let's say they try from this way. This blocks them from getting their thumb in here to actuate the ALS system to be able to pull the gun out all the way. It kind of acts as a guard, if you will. I didn't want to use this because I prefer to run the holster like this. And having this on and running the holster, you can't go straight down into the holster to actuate. You have to kind of go at a weird angle and then actuate and pull it out. So I ditched this, but this comes with it, and this is color matched. So this is also kind of like a Ranger Green. So you get that. And then that's really all that came with it. Other than that, let's get into the pros of this holster. Pros. Durability. Works with multiple lights. I'll list them right here. Works with or without a light. Also retains with or without a red dot. Meaning you could buy this even if you just have a stock Glock 19 and you could run it. It'll work while you're waiting for your light, while you're waiting for your red dot to come in, or while you're saving up for those things. You ultimately buy them, and then you can continue to use the same holster. QLS compatibility. Put one of these on and the world's your burrito. I'll show you some ways that you can attach this to different setups right now. Those aren't the only accessories you can use. You can even use things with cool names like the nub. And last but certainly not least, if you show up to a range wearing one of these, people are automatically going to assume that you are a high-speed, Tier 1 tactical operator, even though you're not. One thing I did forget, and I knew I would, is this guy. This is a little hood that clicks into place. There's a little hole right here and on the other side, and then there's little tiny nubs inside of here. So when you push it down, it clicks closed. Very satisfying click, if I do say so myself. And when you put your handgun in the holster and close it, it protects the red dot a little bit, which is nice, from debris, from getting scratched up, etc. And then when you draw, it pops out of the way. And if you want to just keep it out of the way, or if you want to take it off, you can take it completely off as well. But it's a nice little feature that this holster has. One more thing I will touch on will be accessories. So there's a couple things that you may or may not want to add or subtract from your holster when you get it. One of the things I did was take this off pretty much right away after I realized it didn't really work really well with my draw stroke. The other thing that I did was I added something, and this was the nub. Now the nub is made by OT Defense. It is $30. It's made by Americans with American materials, and this is probably some type of aircraft grade aluminum, powder coated. It's two metal pieces that kind of clamp over the existing nub, and you've got a screw and some Loctite. That's pretty much how it works. But what it does is it gives you a much larger surface area to put your thumb on. You can train with the original nub, get really good at it, and practice sweeping down like you would drawing in 1911 or something, actuating the safety. You can do that. You can get a bunch of reps in because the ALS system is pretty instinctive as it is, but there is still some training, some muscle memory you have to get down to be able to consistently do it every single time. This is kind of cheating. This nub makes it so you just put your hand in and without even thinking about it, you pull the gun out and nothing gets snagged. So I really like the nub. Another thing that you might want to do if you're worried about bulk is get something called the CUBL, and that's also by Safariland. It is the Cantable Universal Belt Loop. So if you look at this, we've got the QLS system, right? This you've already seen. Click on to a bunch of different things, and it's great for modularity. You can move it to different platforms, different systems. If you only have one holster, if you're rich and you have more than one $200 holster, then you wouldn't need something like this. Or if you just have one system and one holster, then you might want to think about the CUBL. What it is instead of having this on here, you have your belt loop, and instead of it just having these three holes here that's the only way you can put it, it's got a bunch of wiggle room here, here, and here so that you can attach this directly to the belt loop at any cant that you want or need without having to have this bulky interface system right here. So that's something you might want to think about if you want it to be closer to your body. You want to save weight as far as all the attachment pieces, not having to need the female and male end of that. Might be something you'd want to consider. But those would be the two things. The nub is $30 again, and the CUBL is $27. That's going to do it for me and the Safariland 6390 RDS holster. If you have any questions that I didn't answer in this video, leave them in the comment section below. If you have any experience with this holster, good or bad, leave that in the comment section as well. And also leave any suggestions for any videos that you want to see on the channel. I greatly appreciate all the support of my family, my friends, my subscribers, and my viewers. If you are checking out this video for the first time, feel free to explore the channel, and if you think I've earned it, subscribe. That really helps the channel a lot. Share this video with everybody that you know to spread the message of freedom and liberty, and like it if you like the video. That'd be great. That's going to do it for me though. As always, stay free and God bless.